I'm gonna be honest, I had no idea it would be this big of a hit. I mean, sellout shows and all of that. I mean,
this idea was originally born in 2018, 2019.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then we had the dilemma of, do we do this thing in Wynwood, like in a hip neighborhood?
Yeah.
Or do we do it in a park? And we're like, hey, Westchester, Tropical Park.
the minute you walk in, you forget it's a tent. What I was most amazed by with his performance is that it was not an impersonation. He was inhabiting that character.
The anticipation before he visually shows up is insane. They're like, I wasn't at the show. I was at my grandfather's, living room.
It connected me. Like I just felt connected to all of my grandparents in that moment. All right, Pero Primos. Now, here on Pero, let me tell you, we've had what seems like every single Miami-based comedian walk through this studio. But none of these guys would exist without the legendary iconography that is the comedy of Alvarez Guedes. And I am here today with two guys who are helping really bring in his story to the new generation with the show El Último show de Alvarez Guedes, Muerto de Risa. We have with us today Nelson Albareda, who is the head of Loud and Live, and Robby Ramos. You might have seen this guy on our show before. It's like your third time on the show at this point.
Is, dude. Yeah, regular.
Yeah, you are one of the writers and directors of the show. So welcome you. Thanks both for coming.
Thank you.
I think Robby was just hanging out here, to be honest with you.
I think this is his home.
He just happened to be here. We caught him on an off day.
I'm the alien in the group.
You're the real guest, really, at the end of the day. Yeah. But thank you guys for swinging by and talking about the show. We were just talking before the camera started rolling that, I was privileged enough, and we've talked about the show already on the show, to go see it the week it opened. And honestly, the way that show has been received has just, we got to start from the success of it all, right? Like, it's been crazy because, I know who Alvarez Guedes was growing up. My grandfather had his cassettes in the car and all of that. So, it's a place in my heart. I'm going to be honest, I had no idea it would be this big of a hit. Sellout shows and all of that. Talk to me a little bit about that. Before we get into the origin of how this all started, how does it feel to have a bona fide, successful play, interactive experience, right, that you guys have now extended a couple of times and probably is going to keep extending too, but don't sit on those tickets. Talk to me about that.
But let me tell you.
Okay, all right. He's already part of the family.
No, I think that we're very thankful for Miami culture and for comedy overall. I do a lot of projects that are not comedy. This is like my first comedy project. And we're super thankful. This idea was originally born in 2018, 2019.
Oh, wow.
I went to meet with a widow of Albarez, and I said, hey, Albarez really... I've worked with a lot of people, right? And I've never done a project where I haven't worked with somebody. Even if they pass away, I've worked with Celia Cruz, with Willie Chirino, who thankfully is alive, Cachao. And I went to Sarah and said, listen, I think this guy never had a tribute in real life, like a farewell. And we originally announced that we're going to do it at the Adrian Arch because I had done Que Pasa USA. It was another staple.
Which was a great show. I also saw that, so.
And I appreciate that. Yeah. But I said, hey, I want to bring it back. So originally I had brought it back to the Adrian Arch Center. And as you would know, and everybody that's in comedy, it's tough to do a comedy show for 2,000 people. It's not intimate.
Yeah,
right?
It's not, especially for a stand-up comic, because this is not just a show. It's about a stand-up, so yeah.
So originally we had put the show on sale at the Adrian Arch in about February of 2020, and then we know what happened. A month later, COVID hit.
What happened in 2020? Was there something that happened?
A little
pandemic?
We were all stuck in our
houses? Yeah.
And so I pulled the show off, and I said, you know what? I had another idea, how to do this, how to do that. His widow had blessed it and said, hey, gave me the rights. And then I was like, hey, let me figure out how do we do this. And then along the way came Robby, who I got introduced with another project that he was working on, La Pared Noy.
Yes, another
fantastic
show.
I was like, hey, this guy might be the right guy to help, with this and figure it out. And then we started talking, and then he brought in Hector Medina, and we figured out, hey, how do we bring this to life?
Yeah. So I know, you're basically becoming Miami's answer to Theater in the Round, because this is your second time at doing this. Paredes you were in immersive in the moment. This is, I don't know how much I can say or not say. This is why I'm kind of like on like walking on eggshells when I talk about the show, because I don't want to reveal things, but it is, you know, it's an experience. It's not just a typical go see the show and it's on a stage and, you know, people are part of the show. I mean, what led you to think, okay, this is the way to go? This is the experience we have to go with, because it will work better than if we just do this removed, you know, performance.
Oh, no. Well, number one, I feel like theater as a whole needs to go more in this direction of that immersive quality, because we're battling Netflix, we're battling, you know, YouTube, all these things that you could do at home, where it's like it's over there and you're here and you have your popcorn and you stop it whenever you want and you talk to whoever, you text. For me, theater, it has this communal kind of like church-like feel to it. And I think there's no better way to do theater than the way we're doing it there at Tropical Park right now, which is basically you get confronted by everything. There's, you know, one, you're walking into a space that is completely immersive. We have a bar at the beginning of the show where you walk into this bar and there's a piano player and there's these characters that you know walk around the bar and they interact with you.
Junior is one of those characters.
Yeah, we might have one of those characters in here, and so then you walk into this other space, which is the cabaret, and in the cabaret, I mean, man, it feels, and every night I still kind of get blown away by it, because I remember walking into that space and it was just a field and grass. And we did walkthroughs where we were.
You guys have done miracles. I mean, we'll talk about the space.
Yeah, we'll get in there. But so you really feel like the atmosphere, and there's, you know, the smoke in there, and it feels like it's lived in, even though it's really not. You know, it's been there 4 weeks basically. But so I feel like, to me, anytime I get a chance to do any form of storytelling, I want to do it in that way, which is immersing the audience right off rip. You know, and to your point of what you were mentioning before, about not knowing if people were going to care about this guy.
I mean, that you think you know, but once the rubber hits the road is when you find out.
Yeah. No, and I got to give it up to Nelson for that regard of like, I felt the same way. I was like, I mean, I think so. And we all had our doubts, you know, like we didn't know, but the risk that he took of being like, no, this guy is somebody that, you know, should be remembered and does deserve this type of, like, you know, showing and tribute, speaks a lot to what the work that he does. And so, like, I didn't really realize what we had in our hands until I started mentioning it to people, and people would go, Albarez, coño, claro, yeah. Oh, I gotta go to that. And then I realized, oh, we're tapping into something there. But before that, it was like nobody spoke about it.
You know, it's interesting because I told Robby, I'm talking about like 8-9 months ago, I said, listen, let's go to Vegas because I want to show you a show.
Yeah.
And I didn't think about this until now that we're talking about it. That show, and I won't mention the show because it's not relevant to this, but I want you to see it because I have another project that I want to work with. But that show actually started in a park in New York City, and then it moved to Vegas. And when we were working on this, there is two things. Everybody doubted the whole Alvarez thing. Robby believed in it, of course, but then we started talking to people, and people started, hey, let's get it going. Yeah. And then we had the dilemma of, do we do this thing in Wynwood, like in a hip neighborhood, or do we do it in a park? And we're like, hey, Westchester, Tropical Park. I mean, like that's like a key neighborhood.
It's perfect.
That was correct. But going back to what he's saying, we often have a lack of theater in Miami, and we went back and forth a lot, even when we opened up the show, because going back to the Netflix or the YouTube, the attention span now of consumers is they stop, they eat the popcorn, like you mentioned, they do this, and we're like, it's an hour and a half, 2-hour show, which I think 15 years ago, 20 years ago, we were like, oh, it's too short.
Yeah.
And we were like, oh, it's too long. And I think we've brought that theater, whether it be immersive or not immersive, is something that we need here. And thinking about like that show that we saw that started on a park in New York and then moved on to Vegas, I think Robby and Hector and the entire team has done a great job. It's really, a lot of people are like, oh, is it a stand-up comedy show? Because they think, obviously, about a head, it's a stand-up. And what we've done is theater and brought his story to life.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, you know, talking about Tropical Park, again, as a Westchester boy, Tropical Park is a big part of my life, you know, from just La Lomita to Santa's
Yeah.
Enchanted Forest to Winter Wonderland.
Christmas
Wonderland. Christmas Wonderland, which is a Loud and Live production as well. And so thanks for that. But how did you guys arrive at that? Because Tropical Park, I remember when this project started hearing about it, I remember hearing like, Robby was like, yeah, bro, they're going to put like tents in Tropical Park. I was like, you're going to put some tents in Tropical Park? Like in my mind, I was like, I'm going to go see the show, but like it's hot as hell in Miami all year long. And you're going to put tents in Tropical Park? Like, okay. Everyone, it's fine. There's air conditioning. It's, but you walk in and what I loved is the minute you walk in, you forget it's a tent, quote unquote, right? Because you say a tent and you think una carpa.
Yeah.
Right.
It's more than a tent, guys. I mean, realistically speaking. But how did that germ of that idea come, to...
Look, I think I was gung-ho about Tropical Park, but like as always, even when Robby and I spoke about it, hey, is it going to work or not? We were torn on Tropical Park. We were torn on a tent. I'm like, listen, don't worry about it. We can make that happen. And then a lot of young people was like, no, you got to do it in Wynwood. And we're like, you know what? It doesn't really feel organic. I'm not sure. Like, one of the great things about this show is that it's multi-generational.
Yeah.
We see that abuela, probably even great-grandmothers, abuelas,
You're lucky.
Parents, kids are going. My own kids are 24, 18, 22. They love the show. Yeah. They're like, we need to do it somewhere it feels organic. Now, it was tough. How do we build that? And when Robby was telling you, the bar is like a 1980s bar. And it definitely has felt like that. The cabaret was inspired in a cabaret called Los Violines.
100%.
Which, we all know it. I don't think you ever went to it.
No.
I never went to it. So we bought like
for my time.
DVDs.
I never went, but I know it. Right?
Yeah, our parents went to it.
But that speaks to the experience, the shared cultural experience.
And that was the inspiration. We saw DVDs, we saw pictures, and we're like, hey, how do we recreate this? And then how do we create it in Westchester? So, but it was a gamble. Because we were torn. Hey, is it Wynwood or is it Tropical Park? And at the end, I think that what Tropical Park has, even driving in there, is that you're driving into our hood where we all grew up. And if you think about Lilas and everything that was key to Westchester, that was key. Whether you lived in Westchester or not, it was part of our life, and that was part of who Alvarez Guedes was.
Yeah, there's a timelessness to Tropical Park that you're not going to get in a Wynwood, for example. Wynwood of today isn't the Wynwood of 5 years ago. Forget.
Oh,
10, 15 years ago. And so it's not the same. So you guys made the right choice, is what I'm saying. But I will say this entire production really lives and breathes by the performance of Ariel. And I will tell you guys, when I was watching the show, sitting there again in the middle of Tropical Park in a tent that's not a tent, and just taking it all in, what I was most amazed by with his performance is that it was not an impersonation. He was inhabiting that character, because there were moments during that show where he was interacting with the audience where if you're doing an impersonation, you can learn your lines and you can learn your script and you can recite them with a certain voice and tone. But if you know this person, you can respond to an audience member saying some random ass thing, right? And I felt that. Like, what's it been like, just that whole experience with him?
I'll let Robby expand on that. I had the opportunity to work with Ariel on Que Pasa.
Oh, really? What was he in?
He was the pizza delivery guy.
Oh, okay.
Papayón.
Papayón.
Papa John's delivery. And I'll leave that at that.
From Papayón to Alvarez Guedes. That is the pipeline. That is the pipeline. To Alvarez
The OG.
You know what? Dreams come true, guys.
Yeah.
All right. That's it.
So I had worked with him, and then we started working on this, and then Robby shows up one day with Hector and says, hey, I got the guy. And I'm like, yeah, we're going to do a casting. We're going to do. And then he mentions Ariel's name, and I'm like, okay. And then you can take it from there. I mean, I don't know how you thought about him or what it was, but then I'm like, okay. I was still a little skeptic. And then we got to the first reading. And I'm like, oh, this guy's good.
Yeah. I just picture Nelson just being like the pizza guy. Yeah. Like, that guy is going to be the star of the show.
That wasn't the lead role.
No,
in Que Pasa.
it wasn't.
He did, by the way, he's a phenomenal actor. He did a phenomenal job. Yeah. But it was when they brought him up, I'm like, oh, I know that guy.
Yeah. Man, the casting of Ariel is almost like it's almost like a spiritual thing to me because of kind of really what he just spoke about was really how it happened. I just like when we first started talking about Alvarez, I had worked with Ariel before. He did La Pared de Joyen. He played the older brother in that, and him and Medina were brothers in La Pared de Joyen. And I just, I love Ariel as an actor, but then, one, I think, I remember looking at him and be like, he could play him. Like, he kind of, tiene un aire, you know what I mean? But then mentioning it, and then it just like kind of came to fruition. It's a very weird thing because any other,
organic.
it was, dude. And but there's something about like the fact that we were all kind of like, all right. I mean, because he could have been as the producer and be like, guys, no,
Right. We need a name or we
how
need
the- no, but he one, he trusted us, but then two, he like everything else with the project, he was like, he took the risk with it. And the fact that it was so smooth and it just kind of happened. The minute we called Ariel too, he was like, okay, ya le voy a decir a todo el mundo que no me llamen para ningún otro proyecto. And this was before. This
He
was
locked
like,
himself in.
yeah, we called him like in November, by the way, Nelson. I don't know if you know that.
No, and they were like, hey, do we book him? Do we not? And
Yeah.
then we were like, literally, I think I spoke to Robby September, October. We went
Yeah.
to Vegas in November.
Yeah.
We came back. I mean, this whole thing happened like in marathon time, right? Writing a script,
Nuts.
directing, producing, the venue, which was not like we're going into a theater. It was like,
build
and by the way, I remember like maybe we were late on rehearsal and everything, like 2 days before. Like, hey, things gonna happen. I'm like, oh, let me do what I do. You do what you do. But it came together. But yeah, look, I think the Ariel thing was super, super organic. Yeah. And he's right. I never fought it. Like
No,
I
you
said,
didn't. You
I
didn't.
said,
You
okay,
really
okay,
didn't.
let's go with him. And I mean, he could tell you, but Ariel went to his grave, talk about his grave.
Oh, yeah, Ariel.
Ariel, I mean, not Ariel, but about his family. The first time they meet him was at our offices, and we were having a press announcement. And they're like, "Oh, listen, like I can't even look at him. I just want to go to the show."
He was in full
in
like
full-
get up.
Yeah.
Even on the first show, one of his daughters left halfway through. 'Cause she was so impressed with him. And by the way, it must be tough being, because the daughters and the grandkids and son-in-laws have been at the shows, and it must be tough, right? It must be tough to see somebody up there.
Yeah.
And I think he really has taken it to heart. Even as the show has progressed, what you said, he's learned how to ad-lib with the team. And by the way, we don't want to divulge the show, but it's a long show to carry where you are the main guy. Because, yeah, you have a lot of... By the way, the show has dancers, has music, has Rubén Pravasa, which we haven't even talked about, has
Yeah, but there's
great
no one for him
actors.
to hide behind if
Right.
he's feeling down that day or anything.
This is the guy.
It's
like,
he's front and
driving.
center. Yeah,
He's driving the show.
yeah.
No, it's. I mean, the weight that guy had on his shoulders leading up to opening was incredible. Because even though we all believed in him, there was still an aspect of like, are you able to carry this weight? Because it's a lot, man. Like the family's going, everybody who's going to see the show. Like I don't know how to explain this because I've never seen this in another show. But the anticipation before he visually shows up is insane.
Yeah, I think the biggest issue is like when I think of Asa, right? It's a cult following. Right?
Yeah.
So how do you, as producers, directors, writers, when like you don't know how the crowd's gonna react, and you grow up thinking, okay, like about his, like how do you transcend that onto a stage? Same thing with Cabasa. Like I was like scared, shitless of saying, hey, people are gonna come with an idea. And then talking about trials and tribulations, and which at every show has it, and we won't get into everything, but 3 days before the show, when we were late on rehearsals, Ariel gets sick.
He was sick.
He's vomiting.
And he said in another interview, funny enough, I call him and I say, hey, I'm gonna send you an IV. And he's like, oh, Robby called me this morning. Then Rueng also had, coming out of rehearsals, another accident. So we're like, what's going on? But listen, God's hand was there. And I say
That's when you called the priest to come and bless
We
the
did,
bless
we
the production.
did.
Okay,
We did.
see, there you go.
We did, dude.
You know, it's interesting because I've done a lot of shows and there's artists that pray, people that pray, but from day one, we prayed. We prayed as a team at the first reading. We prayed at rehearsals, and the entire cast was like, hey, we want to pray. And talking about that, I think it was Hector goes to me, hey, we need to go to La Mita, right? Like any good Cubans, we got to go to a native shrine, we got to pray. I'm like, oh, I think that's going to be a big task of moving 30, 40 people there, but will happen. So we're like, listen, why don't we do this? I'll bring a priest, and we'll do a prayer service. We'll bless the venue. We'll bless everything. And then we had a priest. We had another priest. They all canceled. All of a sudden, our in-house attorney says, hey, the priest that married me is Father Pino, who is the rector of La Mita La Caridad, Our Lady of Shrine. Wow. So he actually came over on Tuesday, and we all prayed, and he blessed it, and it was great. Listen, I always say that, you know, the energy of what happens backstage always goes on to the show, right? That's very important factors. And don't get me wrong, listen, as everything, bad days, good days, but the energy there, I think everybody from day one has been committed to this project, to making sure that the legacy of Alvarez and what it meant to all of us transcends, and that has happened.
Yeah, and I think everyone that we've brought on board ever since it was just me and Nelson when we first started this thing has been strategically put in place, knowing that they're good-hearted people, buena gente. I mean, you look at Junior here who plays one of the characters, one of the several characters. They play like all these different characters. Junior, Randy Garcia, who's the other actor alongside Junior, like they've worked together. They have a chemistry already built in, you know, doing improv and all the other things. And then buena gente, same thing with Rueng. I can't think of a better person than Rueng. Like, I love him to death, you know? And these are people that you're going to put them in a group and they're not going to taint, you know? No one at all. Then Braley, the musical director that Nelson brought in, like, these are all people like coming at this show from such a good-hearted place and doing it for the right reasons. The dancers from Katia, and then she picked her dancers for the group. Katia's the head choreographer and the main dancer of the show. Everybody comes together, and every Thursday, la gente, they're like texting in the group chat and like ready to go and excited, you know, to start the week. So
I think everybody has given it heart and love, and that shows in the show.
I think it's interesting, you know, going back to what you were saying, you know, you had previously helped produce the Que Pasa 40 years later. Was that the subtitle?
Que Pasa, you say 40 years later, which, by the way, next year is 50th year anniversary.
Why are you coming on my show to make me feel old? Like, sir, eres un invitado, and you're here making me feel old. Come on. I mean,
it is what it is.
Let me just put it this way. I was 1 year old when Que Pasa started. So
I wasn't even born.
That helps you a little bit. So
I wasn't even
I'm
born.
the older guy in the group.
Yeah. Okay. So I feel better now. All right. So we're good. But you know, I think, and now you're working with, you know, the Alvarez Guedes. Do you feel a certain, as a Miami boy, as a Cuban, you know, Cuban American Miami boy, do you feel maybe a certain level of responsibility to continue those cultural touchstones and make sure that they don't get lost in the shuffle? Because, you know, you can make the argument, and you even said like, oh, with Que Pasa, you were saying, you know, it's like, it's a cult thing. And I would argue, I don't know if it's a cult thing. I think it's just a generational thing. Same with Alvarez Guedes, I think it's generational. But do you feel, based on, I'm asking this question based on your track record of the projects you've worked on, a sort of responsibility to make sure that these things just continue to live on for future generations, and then by extension find the right people to bring those to life?
Look, I think that if you are Cuban exile or Cuban American or American Cuban, and you grew up in Miami, like, there was a legacy and a rationale to understand what made Miami. And I think about this with like New York, right? The Italian and the Irish made that city.
Yeah.
Miami was made by Cubans, right? Our grandparents, our parents. And I work on a lot of big projects, but I've always had very proud, and I always say this, as a little kid, I was a Willie Chirino fan. And I would find any girl that I knew that could take me. I didn't come, you know, from money. You know, I didn't know how to go to a Willie Chirino. Oh, I did actually buy tickets for my dad to go to a Father's Day show, which I'll never forget, at the Fillmore. But it was like, hey, how do I get to a show to see that guy?
Right.
And, you know, I think that there is a legacy, and, you know, everybody has their own space, right? Whether it be food and restaurants. In my case, God has blessed me with being in the entertainment business and working with brands and with music. And I want to keep that legacy alive for my kids to know, my grandkids to go. So yeah, I have it as a mission every 2 or 3 years in my career to do a legacy project. My first one was in 2005. I did Willie Chirino's 35th anniversary.
Okay. I was gonna say, because I know you work with Willie Chirino now, which is a great full circle moment, right?
Listen, that show, I did a TV special for PBS. Back then, PBS was big. And I had
only
never
4
done
channels
TV.
at the time.
You guys know how to do TV. I had never done TV. I didn't know what a jib was. I didn't know what this was. I had like a crew of 30 people, and I directed that. Like, if I knew what the hell I was doing, they all knew. I did not know what I was doing. Got nominated for a Latin Grammy. I did Cachao, who was creator of the Mambo's 80th anniversary, won a Grammy and a Latin Grammy. Then I did another legacy project with Que Pasa. Then I did Willie Chirino's 50th anniversary.
At the
as
History
well
of
as
Miami
Que
Museum?
Pasa. And then I had the Alvarez project. And yeah, listen, all of them, and I know, and Robby has not worked with me, so he knows that money is important. Because I'm like, hey, we got to break even or make money.
Of course.
Right? That's important.
It's not a charity.
No, but you know what? Because a lot of people that do culture projects A lot of people ask me, hey, the biggest thing as an entrepreneur or a producer is executing. And you can't continue to execute unless at least you break even. And the biggest projects I've done are some of these legacy projects where I've ended up making actually a lot of money. And I do, listen, I do it for an amor al arte, for the love for art. And this is one of those projects. And I just think it's very key. Like, if you think about Guedes, he was key. He opened up stand-up comedy, no doubt, for all Latins. But he was key in the fabric of us growing up. As you said, a Miami boy. Yeah. He was key. When you go to that show, you relive the moments of our childhood. And great that I see, like, when I went to Robby, Robby was probably 10 years younger than me, maybe a little more. It was like, oh, here's somebody that of another generation that believes in this. My kids, they went and they laughed. A lot of what about his was storytelling. And a lot of the things of Miami and what made Miami and the story is still vivid today.
Yeah. That one of the things I love about people saying when they're at the show, they're like, I wasn't at the show. I was at my grandfather's, living room, just watching Albareda. And that gives me goosebumps because I didn't realize that until we did the show and people said that. And it's like, yeah, that's what the fuck we're doing. We're bringing these memories of this person, of these people's childhood, of your grandma in the kitchen and your grandfather in the living room watching Albareda or listening to a record. A lot of people say when they hear the sound of Ariel's voice, they start crying. I mean, like, that's as a person who makes theater and wants to bring people together, to hear that is beautiful, man.
Nostalgia's powerful.
I think there's two things. One of the things that I've been the most impressed is that when we created this, we're like, we'll get a 60-year-old, we'll get the 50-year-olds, and we'll get the 30-year-olds. There's two things that impressed me. One, we're getting all those people, but we're also getting the 80 and the 90-year-olds. I've had people like, hey, my great-great-grandmother is 98, I want to take her to the show. And some people have, which are like, oh, that's like not the target that we want. But in reality, it's super cool because I've had people that says, look, I can never take my mom, my 70 or 80-year-old somewhere. And I've been able to take her. On the other side, I just met with a girl today. She's 22 years old. And she's like, look, I love that show. It just brought all these great memories. Like, the fact that we're targeting from 20 to 95, there's not a lot of theater experiences where you can experience that. And that was the goal. And Robby mentioned something, which is the whole message of the show is bringing people together. Mm-hmm. That is what it is, because if you think about it, when I was a kid, and I say this all along, let's just say that my dad did not get along with my grandfather, his father-in-law, like any typical Cuban family, when you would bring out an LP and you would play Alvarez, people would forget whether they cared, liked each other or not, and it would bring people together. And that's the message of ultimately what the show does.
Yeah. No, it's very telling. I said, nostalgia is probably the most powerful drug out there, right? And it's just because when you hit it, you hit it. And I'll speak for myself. When I was at that show, my grandparents have been, God, they've been dead for years. My mom's mom was the last one to go, and that was maybe like 6 years ago, give or take. And before that, right? But when I was at that show, watching my mom enjoy the show, seeing her laugh, knowing that she knew him because of my grandparents, and then it just made me feel connected. And then just, even though my dad's mom wasn't necessarily, I don't associate her with Alvarez Guedes, but at the beginning of the show, they mentioned Tres Patines, and I used to listen to that show with her on the radio. So, like, in that moment, it connected me. Like, I just felt connected to all of my grandparents, and in that moment, just things I hadn't stopped to really sit with. I
laugh only because I've gotten like 10 text messages. You need to bring Tres Patines back.
And I'm like, I have.
Let's slow it down.
That's
Somebody said
that's a 110-year-old guy. We'll bring
That's,
him back.
I mean,
Alvarez would be, I think it's June 6th. He'd be 99 years old. So he'd be 99. So Tres Patines
will be like 200. Because
yeah.
Tres Patines was old back when I was listening to those shows. Was a good like 30 years ago, and he was already been dead. He'd already been dead for like 20 years. Yeah. So yeah.
That's another cool thing with the show is that people leave there like, oh, who's the next guy? They tell me Benny More too is another one that people are always saying like, maybe it's Benny, maybe it's this, maybe it's that, but I don't know. I think even when we first started marketing the show and that whole thing of Del Cielo by Miami and like actually making it the whole idea of, you know, it's about a headache coming back to do his last show. The only reason we did that is because I knew Ariel was going to he was going to be able to execute the mission, which was inhabit this guy in a way that is truly like going to see Albareda in person.
Yeah, I mean, we're in the Cultura studios, but, you know, I think that's also something that Cultura was able to, I know you worked with them to really put that together, because to your point, you have to communicate so much. This guy's dead. What do you mean there's a show? What, is it a stand-up show? Is it an impersonation? Is it, so it's for 90-year-olds? No, it's for, like, there's just there's so much that you have to communicate in, like, and let me tell you something. I have seen the posters on billboards all over Miami. So you have definitely blanketed Miami with the messaging, but I think you've done it it's been done in a way that it catches your attention. And at least I would have been like, what do you mean show that Albareda? Like, I would have gone online and sought it out.
Let me tell you something that I think is funny, and we've talked about it. So first of all, we've gotten a lot of DMs of people saying, Guillermo, which his name is Guillermo Alvarez, where do I find your albums or cassettes? Like, people think he's still alive.
Yeah.
And then we've had people, and this is a real good one, because when he said Muerto de Risa, El Último show, we had a couple people that have asked for refunds. They say we're misleading advertising. And this lady actually showed up at our office and said, look, you're misleading because it's not his last show. He's dead. And I bought my tickets thinking that I was going to go see Alvarez. And when I go on your website, it talks about him, but it doesn't say he's alive. So
did she think she was paying for a time machine?
Let me tell you,
I mean,
people,
la gente son del carajo.
Y la gente, by the way, and she said she was going to file a class action lawsuit because he's dead, and that she wanted a refund, and that we were quick to take their money, but not quick to refund it. And we gave her the money. So
because you went and you saw the show, dumbass. Like, also, if only there existed this thing called Google that you could check that someone's been dead for 20 years. You know, I mean.
And you want to get a better one. So I have another one. And I won't say her name. She is the friend of a friend of mine. This guy's real good, you know, Bacero. And his wife is 35 years old, and she went to see the show. And she's a beauty, she works in a beauty salon. Next day she goes back to the beauty salon, she goes, oye, déjame decirte una cosa. Ese tipo Alvarez es un monstruo. And I went to see him last night, and the show was spectacular.
Oh my
and the lady in the beauty salon goes, hey, what are you talking about? Like, that guy's dead. She goes, no, what do you mean she's dead? I saw him last night.
Wow.
And then she felt embarrassed, so she went on Google, said that, looked him up, and she goes, oh, he's really dead. So, listen, at the end of the day, that means that we did a great job, because people are actually going to the show and thinking that they're seeing
that's crazy.
I don't know. If I was you, this is me being me. I wouldn't have refunded them shit, because I would have been like, you saw the show, right? You stayed here for the entire hour and a half, 2 hours. You didn't. No. Like, coño, no joda.
Yeah, but look, you know what?
Sorry, I know you guys are
things that we're sharing here.
I can say those things.
Those are things that we're sharing here, but to be honest with you, it's great as a producer, as a writer, as a director, and as the labor of love, and even Cultura, who has worked on this, and we want to thank them, is the fact that we have great reviews, the fact that tickets are selling out. Our goal is to keep culture alive.
How many weeks has this been running already with sold out audiences in every show? It's been about, what, 4 or 5 weeks?
Yeah, we started
I feel like,
the last week of April.
Yeah.
And we've extended it now through Father's Day.
Father's Day, so June 21st.
And hopefully with the big audience that you have on your podcast, we'll extend it to August.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know what? Why not? Listen, my birthday's in August. That'll be the birthday present y'all can give me. Just keep going to the
we
show.
extend it to August, and we'll celebrate you and 250 friends every night. Which, by the way, is interesting because
I love 250 intimate friends. Yes, it's a small gathering.
You know, because it's interesting, I think, for people that haven't gone to the show and who don't know, this is a cabaret where the capacity is 250 people a night. So the experience is a real intimate.
Yeah, no matter where you're sitting. Yeah.
It's not a bad seat in the house. It's
There
like
really isn't.
Going to a cabaret and seeing a show.
Yeah. No, and again, I know you guys had initially thought to do this at the Arsht, and I love the Arsht. We just had, Suzette from the Arsht on the show, and we've been there. I love the Arsht. Even in the smaller theater, it wouldn't have worked because again, it's that end stage feeling as opposed to interactive and immersive.
Yeah. When I go and I'm outside and I see the cars coming up and valet parking and people getting off at Tropical Park, that feels very different than going downtown and valeting and walking into a big building. This feels like where it should be. Yeah. And going back, I hope that we can do more projects like this where it's really theater in the park, and that's a great feeling.
Especially Miami. That's not something that happens all the time.
No, and to your point of the no matter where you're sitting, I mean it's almost like it's really like a 360 experience because what you have is you have scenes happening within the audience. You have two stages, so regardless of where you're sitting, you're gonna get a good show, and you might even get called up to the stage. You might be part of the show.
That's
so it's
true. If you're lucky or unlucky, depending on how you view that, right?
Look at it. Yeah.
As we wrap up, I want to ask the question because I feel Alvarez Guedes is someone who, again, I grew up knowing. But you said something at the beginning, Nelson, which I agree with. I feel like he never got his flowers in the way that so many other performers have. I mean, and I'll just, I guess the closest comparison I'll use is Celia Cruz, just because, also somebody who has a great legacy, passed away. What do you think it is that he needed this show, right? Like, and I don't mean he needed it, but, he deserved to have this type of homage. What was it, do you think he didn't?
Look, I think, like I told you, I've worked with many people and I never got to work with him. And Robby can tell you this, as we did a lot of research and history and we spoke to a lot of people. He was a guy that was pretty introverted in real life. He was a guy that was very, into culture. I think a lot of people, when we haven't discussed this guy wasn't just about comedy. 1950s, he signed Elena Urque, which was phenomenal. Signed Olga Guillot, signed Rolando La Serie, a ton of artists with his record label called Hema, that he contributed a lot to just music. Second of all, then, obviously, he signed a Gran Combo de Puerto Rico, which was called the Cortijo y su Combo, renamed some Gran Combo. Then he signs, at the end of his career, Willie Chirino, and gives him his first album. This guy really, and I talked to a valet parker and that used to work at Los Violines. So every night he'd come in and he would listen to opera and classic music on his way home. He also said, hey, I don't want to star fame, whether it be in Hollywood or here in Miami. I don't want people to walk over my name. And what we've learned is that the guy was very, very peculiar. And I worked with Celia, so I can tell you that Celia, and somebody asked me the other day, I think that generation, artists today with technology and with a whole bunch of stuff is very different, right? Mm-hmm. These guys, they were very professional about what they did. Mm-hmm. Celia, you would tell her, hey, I'm going to pick you up at the hotel at 9. She'd be there at 8:45. Mm. Other artists, you tell them 9, they're there at 9:30, 10 o'clock. And I think that this guy was very into arts, into culture. He contributed. I mean, I think he's the Richard Pryor of Latin comedy. Yeah. He opened up the door to Latin comedy. He helped culture. I've been talking to so many people. I spoke to Lilia Stefan, who's on TV, and she's like, my first opportunity, Alvarez gave it to me.
Really?
Right. On a show for TV in El Caribe. I don't know what it was, how it was, but, I think he had a big impact. And I think just the way that he was in his late years, he didn't want that. And I think it's, this show is a testament. And by the way, even our social media handles. I work on a lot of projects, right? We just hit 110,000 followers. Wow. Which is on Instagram. But that's not typical, right? Like, I have other projects, I won't get into them, that have been around for 20 years, and they got 40, 50,000. Listen, even Que Pasa.
But especially for a comedian who's been dead for how long?
But it's good comparable, right? Que Pasa, I think, has 80,000 followers, right? We open up the Alvarez official, because he didn't have Instagram handle. Right when we launched the show, we had like 8,000 followers because we had it from the Adrian Arch. He picked up 100,000 followers in 30, 45 days, which is huge.
Incredible.
So, look, I think this guy deserved it. He had a place in culture, and it's been a great success.
Yeah, no, it's a testament to what you guys have pulled together, to do. Again, I think it speaks to you both. I mean, you're from Miami. You understand the culture. You understand how to put everything together, and you understand from the arts, like how to create that germ. And when that comes together, I think, well, clearly the success speaks for itself, right?
Yeah, and
it's definitely having an impact.
There's a missing piece here, which is Hector Medina, and that he's not Cuban American necessarily. He's a Cuban from the island, and he came maybe, a decade ago at max, right? Okay. And so
he's still fresh.
He's still fresh, but he brings an aspect to the show that Nelson and I don't necessarily have because we were born here and we come from a different perspective, a different POV. But Hector and Alvarez Guedes spoke about this a lot, about being that immigrant or that exile, right? Yeah. That comes from another country, starts again. And I think Hector Medina brought a massive contribution to the show from that aspect. Right. That we really get the point of view as well of that exile. Yeah.
Right, I agree. And by the way, going on that, Robby's saying, Hector grew up in Cuba where people were really hide to listen to Alvarez. I have a therapist, and he's 60 years old now, and he's like, hey, I used to listen to Alvarez, and I would interpret his jokes for my dad and 5 of his friends, and they would say, hey, muchacho, cállate, because that was seen as forbidden, even his jokes. And Hector brought that angle, even on culture, on being, one of the things that we did with the script was to keep it purist to Alvarez, right? Because we need to keep that integrity, because there's not much that you can change to the guy who, by the way, wrote movies, storyteller. But within that, Hector brought integrity that both, Robby and I perhaps didn't have because of history on the music side. Yeah, because I worked in music, but he was a validator. So I think that when Robby brought him in, it was a great idea, because it's a good tripod, right? There's 3 different people with 3 different backgrounds, and in reality, 3 different generations, because Hector grew up in a different world than what Robby grew up and what I grew up in.
Yeah.
So it was very different. I grew up in Miami Beach. I could told you Lila's at Westchester because that was like a field trip, but I didn't grow up in Westchester, right? It was 3 different backgrounds that really, Alvarez has his story joke about a melting pot, and we brought that melting pot of different people. Yeah. Different thoughts. Yeah. We fought, we argued, we agreed, and
we had big meetings that we're not gonna.
We won't talk about it.
That's a mini series. That's a whole other podcast.
Our first meeting, Robby didn't drink, and I don't have a problem going on the record. But Hector and I had a bottle of vodka. We got nothing accomplished, but we bonded.
I heard him a lot of things.
And by the end of the meeting, he was also drinking.
You drove him a drink. Imagine me here. And over there, Hector, and this guy was like a ping pong. Boom, 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 boom. Yeah. Me and Hector drinking.
Yeah, I left there with a migraine. But anyways, dude, and I want to say this on record too, is that Nelson is really, you've trusted me, dude. I don't know why, but you have trusted me in bringing in people, right? Like Hector, I brought in Hector, and he didn't second guess it not once. Like I don't even think I had a conversation with you like, hey, I'm going to bring... He just showed up there almost.
No, and it's interesting that you say that, because I met Robby through an organization that I'm the chairman now, called FACE.
Yes.
And they told me about Pared Noy, and he came to see me, and I'm like, I don't know what this guy knows what the hell he's doing. And I try to help him with it. I never even went. I've never seen any so I didn't go to Paredes. But then I was like, I had an instinct, and I'm like, hey, I got to bring in people that really understand. As a matter of fact, Rubén Rabasa, who's now an actor, I think 3 years ago, I met with him and a writer about the same project. Like, you know what? I don't feel it. And then with Robby, I'm like, this is the guy. Right. And I'm like, hey, do you believe it? And then we took this trip to Vegas, bonded a little bit. And from the beginning, Robby, everybody, as an actor, and now I know that you're much more than an actor, but he has this little book. And he would write things. And by the way, I don't have my book because I left it in the car, but I write things, and I was like, I went, and this guy writes everything down, and this is a guy. But you're right. I mean, it was a leap of faith, and it was really, man, God that brought us all together to do this.
That's why I say it was spiritual all along the way, man. It really was. So
it's been tough because you got a lot of people with different backgrounds, people that in some cases haven't done this before, right? Including me, because I've done a lot of projects, but not this type of project. And we've been blessed, and God has definitely, I think, been part of the fact that everybody really wants us to be led by culture and by love and respect to Alvarez and to our culture.
Well, I will say you can't say that anymore after this show, because now you have done something like this before, and it's been a success. So I again, as somebody who went literally the first night it opened, there was just something. I just felt that magic coming through. It sounds cheesy as hell, but it just felt very authentic, and it resonated, and I could feel everybody in the audience just really vibing with it, to the extent that I think you wanted to happen, but couldn't anticipate? Like you wanted it to be good, but I don't think you guys anticipated that it was going to be more than what you had thought.
Well, listen, we appreciate it, and we thank you, and I do the same way that you thanked Hector. I want to thank Cultura,
yes,
who definitely, also believed in this. Beyond helping us with the marketing, they've said, hey, like, how do I embrace this? I want to make it happen. Like, everybody here is just saying, let's make it happen.
It's been incredible, man.
Yeah, they're a crazy little family.
They are. They're a little crazy.
They're a crazy little family.
But we're all crazy. Now we wouldn't be here.
This is also true. I say that out loud so that I don't be the only crazy one in the room. Is really why.
Listen, I have 10 core values that I'm live, and one is called fun and crazy is healthy. Because if you don't have fun and you're not crazy, then you will never be able to work in this business.
This is true. Nobody likes a repressed person in the entertainment business. All right. Well, Nelson, Robby, thank you so much for swinging by. Again, I'm going to say El Último show de Alvarez Guedes, Muerto de Risa.
You got it.
He is not alive. Okay, if you go to see the show, you are seeing an actor playing this man. But it is running through June 21st at Tropical Park inside tents that are not tents.
And I'm going to do un anuncio político no pagado. Tickets are available on alvarezguedes.com.
I was getting to that, so thank you.
Okay. I want to make sure I got to put it in.
Go ahead.
We have a Thursday show at 8 o'clock. We have a Friday show at 8 o'clock, a 6 o'clock, and a 9:30 show on Saturday, and a 6 o'clock show on Sundays.
All right. So what I'm hearing is there's no excuse not to go see this, guys.
Correct.
It's Thursday through Sunday, 2 shows on Saturdays. I mean, you don't even need a sitter.
Y hay tres paquetes. Ño que caro y ño que barato. So you can get, and by the way, they're all good seats, so just buy your tickets on alvarezguedes.com.
Yeah. Again, as somebody who went to the show, there's no, the pricing is the pricing, but there's no bad seat based on the price. Yeah.
No, listen, I think the pricing, we try to make it affordable for everybody. We've never had a comment, and at the end of the day, what we want you is to come out and enjoy it. And bring your grandparents, bring your parents, bring your kids, bring your friends. And it's interesting, and this will be the last thing. We have in the show, there's something that says, in the 1960s, there was a saying that said, no blacks, no dogs, no Cubans. Yep. And I went to the show with 4 friends of mine that are not Cuban. And they're like, oh, is that real? And I just Googled it, and I said, yeah, look, this is what Cuban exiles went. So at the end, what I want to say is that the show, you're not only going to laugh, but it's a journey through his life and through Miami.
Yeah, you learn a lot, actually. All right, guys. Well, thank you for coming by. And if you've already seen it, go see it again. Like, honestly, you're going to have a good time anyway.
Thank you. Appreciate you, dude.